Estonia, at least in our imaginations. Isn't it wonderful how books can transport you somewhere you've never been before?
Yeah, it's one of the things I love most about reading. Yes, and some authors, they just have this amazing ability to make you feel as if you're living and breathing the story.
Oh, I think you'll find that about today's author, Sarah. Her book is utterly engaging.
So who is she?
Her name is Lauren Chater, and this is her first book.
Oh, fantastic. I've been really looking forward to getting some new talent on the show.
Yeah, we really want to support young Australian talent, don't we?
Yes.
So off to Estonia we go! Woohoo! Welcoming Lauren Chater, the author of The Lace Weaver, to my house for dinner. Now, The Lace Weaver is set in Estonia during the Second World War. In this, very dramatic period of history, the Estonians were first of all overrun by the Soviets, and they were living under Russian control. And there were all sorts of deportations and deaths and hardships. And so they actually looked to the Germans to rescue them, only to find themselves under Nazi control and under a worse kind of dictatorship. So trying to work out a menu to celebrate Lauren's wonderful book took me a little bit of time and a little bit of research. I'd never cooked Estonian food before, but tonight I'm going to make Estonian lamb shanks. I obviously have my lamb shanks here, and I'm actually cooking them with lemon zest and orange zest and orange juice, and I'm cooking it with roasted root vegetables. And because the Estonians were, they were peasants, they were living on the edge of the forest, I wanted to make it, very earthy, very, colourful and natural. And so I've chosen lots of vegetables with a lot of colour in, oranges and purples and a turnip and some beetroots and so forth. And then I'm going to make a traditional Estonian side dish, which is mashed potato with cabbage, and that should hopefully be very creamy and delicious. So we are so glad to have Lauren Chater here with us today. This is her new book, The Lace Weaver, which I absolutely adored. And I have to say I'm also immensely proud because Lauren is one of my students. And look, how good is that? So Lauren, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. So my book, The Lace Weaver, is set in 1940s Estonia. It's a story about two young women, Kati and Lydia, from very different backgrounds, but they're drawn together by this beautiful knitted Estonian lace, and their traditions of shawl making bring them together.
So how did you find about this beautiful lace making that is a tradition of Estonia?
Well, I actually discovered it in a library that I was working at, and I pulled a craft book off the shelf as I was shelving. A little voice called out to me, and it was about knitted Estonian lace, which I had never heard of before. But as I was reading the history of Estonia, which is a tiny little Baltic country on the edge of Russia, and it's been occupied by the Germans, by the Russians, I was just intrigued, and I wanted to know whether these beautiful knitted shawls could be a voice for these women and a way for them to survive the oppressions of occupation.
So were you interested in Estonia before you found that book?
Well, I must confess that I actually did not know where Estonia was, but I think a lot of people wouldn't. And so it's been wonderful to have people talk to me about Estonia, and I've been to the Estonian archives and to learn about this other culture, which is actually beautiful and rich in tradition.
So I know that you did a great deal of research for this book. Can you tell us something about your process?
Sure. So part of the process for me involved actually going to Estonia. So a 24-hour flight, possibly 25 hours, and 3 stopovers. But it was wonderful to actually go to the place where your story is set. And I went to the forest. I saw Forest Brothers bunkers, and did a little stopover in St. Petersburg so that I could go to the Hermitage. So that was nice. So that was the kind of research that I did for that, but also books, of course, and going to the Estonian archives.
So many of our viewers probably do not know that Estonia was invaded first by the Soviets and then by the Germans during the Second World War. So they went from one totalitarian government to another. It must have been unbelievably awful to live through that. What can you tell us about that?
I think, it must have been just crushing for these people. They did see the Germans as sort of their saviours, unfortunately, that not knowing any better, that the Russians had taken all their food and their jobs, and they had deported hundreds of thousands of people from the Baltics. And so when the Germans came in, they thought, this is it, we're going to get our country back and we're going to regain our independence, and it just didn't happen.
But one of the things that struck me most about your book is how hungry everyone was all through it. I mean, they were living in desperate times, weren't they?
Yes. And Estonia, because it's a very cold country, they have a lot of hearty food. So you think potatoes and meat, they eat boar and bear and elk and all that sort of thing. So for them, it must have just been horrific to have so little to eat during that time of occupation. And a lot of their food was given to the Russian army, so that they just ended up with the scraps, just whatever was left.
So talking about starving, we're all starving. I think we should go down and eat now. Unfortunately, I'm not serving bear or elk, but I do have what looks like the most delicious Estonian lamb shanks. Come and eat. So you were just saying how it took you so much courage to actually send off your manuscript to an editor who'd already expressed interest in your work. I mean, it does take such courage, doesn't it? And the whole act of writing is one of continually digging deep and finding faith in yourself and the courage to keep on going. How did you manage this?
I think part of it was just desperation. I have 2 young children, and that doesn't leave a lot of time for procrastination, and so I had to let go of perfection. I just had to do my best, and I think that's really an important lesson for people who are trying to write and to be published, is just to forget that that anyone is really going to read it. Once I'd sent that manuscript, I felt so free. I was lighter than air, and I just had the best week of my life that week. And I didn't even really care what she said because I'd done it. And I think that sense of achievement is more valuable in a way than even getting a contract.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That act of courage, I mean, it is its own reward. Writing your story is its own reward, and I think it's probably some of the best advice that you can give anyone out there that's dreaming of having a book published too.
I was going to say, back to the lace motif. Did you know when you started writing that you were going to have a lace motif for each chapter? So for people at home, basically each chapter is headed up with a lace design, like the wolf or the snowflake or the flower and things like that. And or did you put that in towards the end? Or?
It was kind of a way of anchoring myself in the story. So and it also made the story feel real to me. It felt like a real book in that I had each chapter. I tried to use the lace as a kind of an echo of what was happening in each chapter. Yeah. It doesn't always work, but it at the time, it was just a way for me to find my voice in the story.
I was astounded by how many lace patterns there were.
And I loved all of that. One of my favourite parts of the books. I love the beautiful stories and the use of Estonian folklore that was woven through, and how the lace became a metaphor for strength and courage and community. That was really powerful for me.
Thank you. And are their motifs particularly Estonian, or are there those motifs shared throughout European lace?
I think I tried to make them particularly Estonian. They reference a lot of Estonian flowers and folklore and things like that. So yes, because my characters are Estonian. I wanted it to feel real and to go deep into my characters.
Well, we've polished off our Estonian feast, and I have to say it was pretty damn good. So why don't we go to the library now and have an aperitif and maybe a cookie, and we'll talk about our favourite books.
Wonderful. Well, here we are. It's that time of the episode again, the time that word of mouth is all about, where we get tips straight from the author's mouth. And today Lauren has her recommendations of her most recently read book that she enjoyed, and also one of her favourite cookbooks.
So my best recent read is this beautiful book called The Paris Seamstress, and it's by Natasha Lester. It's a novel about love and war and resistance set in 1940 and 2015, and the bond between a young girl and her grandmother.
It's a wonderful book. I've read it as well, and the thing I love most about it is it's full of the most glorious clothes. I just wanted to wear them all.
It's in the fabric. If you're interested in fabrics, the images of gold and silk just sort of rolling over tables, and little rosebuds made out of petals, pink silk. And I'd also like to say the cover is just amazing, and there's a bit of a story behind this model, is that right?
Her name is Ada van Munster, and she has a fabulous Instagram account where she models vintage clothes, and I highly recommend checking it out if you're into that sort of thing.
Yes,
We are.
Definitely into that sort of thing.
And what's your book of the month, Sarah?
Well, my book was an old one. It's been around for a long time again, and that's Joanne Harris's 5 Quarters of the Orange. It's about food, of course, being a Joanne Harris novel, and it's based on the sort of concept of competition to gain old French recipes between chefs, and the nephew of a woman is trying to get all the recipes that come from down her family line, and it's a bit of a race to the end sort of thing, but it's set in World War II and in 2 timelines, and it's just beautiful. It's well written, lovely.
It's one of my all-time favourite books too, I have to say.
Yes.
I love that book. Alright, so the best book that I have read recently is The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. It's actually set in Victorian times. It's about a nurse who is sent to a small Irish village where there is a young girl, only about 7 or 8 years old, who has decided to starve herself in this kind of religious ecstasy. She's seen as being a miracle come down to save the village from poverty and hardship and famine. And basically she's got anorexia nervosa, but they all think that she's starving herself like a saint of old, and it's the nurse's job to try and save this girl from dying of starvation. It's beautifully written, it's absolutely heartbreaking, and I can really recommend it. We all love to cook here on Word of Mouth TV, and so I'm just about to ask Lauren if she can recommend to us her favourite cookbook. Lauren, show us what you've got.
Well, my favourite cookbook is Nigella Lawson's How to Be a Domestic Goddess. We've been together for quite a few years now, as you can tell from all the sticky pages. I just love it. I think I've made almost all the recipes in here. My very favourite one is the Rosebud Madeleines, because I love. Yes, they're so dainty and made with real rose petals. So that's my favourite one. But yeah, that's my favourite book.
We adore Nigella on this show. I try and channel Nigella. I wish that I could be Nigella. I love that book as well. Yeah. This is my favourite cookbook. It's definitely Alexander, the Cook's Companion. Just like Lauren and Nigella, I've made nearly every single thing in this cookbook, and the pages are marked, and I've also written on the pages every now and again, just adjusting the recipe slightly to my own taste. So this is the cookbook that I go to most often.
And the best cookbook that I've read recently is Maggie's Recipes for Life. I'm a great soup fan, and she's got some wonderful healthy soup recipes in there. So yeah, go.
And look how gorgeous she looks. She's radiant.
I know, she is. She's something to aspire to. So one of Australia's best loved chefs here, cooks. Yeah.
You may not know this, but Lauren is not only a brilliant author, but she runs a fabulous blog which is called The Well-Read Cookie, in which she actually makes these adorable cookies inspired by books and then takes photographs about them and blogs them. So she's made cookies inspired by my books, so you can tell that she's got excellent taste. Can you tell us a little bit about the Well-Read Cookie?
So the Well-Read Cookie started in 2014. I just had my daughter, and because I didn't have enough to do, I decided that I would have to teach myself another skill, and so I taught myself how to ice these cookies. I used blogs, American blogs, and to learn, and then I taught myself, and I thought it was a bit of a niche area, and it would be interesting to connect to authors that way too, and also as a little thank you, because authors give you such an amazing experience.
Lauren, thank you so much for coming and sharing your inspirations and your challenges with us here on Word of Mouth TV. We've had such a lovely time with you, and we really enjoyed your book. It took us somewhere we'd never been before. And to all of you out there, thank you so much for joining us once more on Word of Mouth TV. I hope you'll come and dine with the authors next time. Bye! Thank you for joining us.
And if you want to enter our giveaway,
Or know more about our fantastic prizes,
or try any of our delicious recipes,
or know all about our news, views and reviews,
then just go to our website at wordofmouthtv.com.au.
see you next time.